Don't I always?
No.
My topic will be interrogating you about the doubles drill.
Your topic is to interrogate me.
Is that okay or no? All right, I got stuff to talk about.
Welcome to Practical Shooting After Dark. My name's Ben. On deck today, we have from the middle part of the country, Mr. Joel Park.
Hello, everyone.
From North Mexico, Mr. Tim
Again
Mars.
with that. Howdy.
You can't what?
I said again with that, huh? That Mexico thing.
Isn't that where you're from?
No. You're being insensitive again.
I'm not being insensitive. You guys have awesome Tex-Mex. Hey, remember, you can't have Tex-Mex without Mex.
Okay.
So don't hate on Mexico, Tim. I'm tired of it. Your racist talk. All right. Let's get going with this week in shooting. You guys know the deal. Everybody comes here with a topic, a thing that they did this week in shooting, or maybe some prior week if you're short on stuff that you've been doing this week. As we approach the holidays, you know, you guys are, well, the listeners will get this after Christmas, but it is not yet Christmas for us in the time warp. And, okay, so if there's something that pisses you off, some rule change you'd like to see in shooting, that would all be fair game for a topic. And then we'll maybe take some questions. So who'd like to go first?
Joel.
Joel is nominated to go first by Tim.
All right, well, it's not really, like, I don't know. I've got lots of people asking me questions. Well, I saw the podcast you did with Kim, and you were talking about shooting the doubles, like, oh, Kim's shooting doubles 20,000 rounds a year. This must be so good. And then, like, all of a sudden, people that didn't pay enough attention to the drill before are now starting to realize how important it is.
Yes.
So I have more questions about that.
You've got questions, I've got answers.
Boom. So everyone gets the goal of the drill is to shoot pairs of shots into the target. What is the drill really measuring? Like, do you think people really get that?
What is it measuring? It's not measuring shit. Not really.
Okay.
It's not an objective performance standard so much as it is learning how your gun feels. So here's a different way of putting it. To learn how to drive your car fast, or maybe how to ride your bike. Learn how to ride a bike. You put training wheels on the bike, or maybe if your dad loves you, mine didn't, but if your dad loves you, he hold the bike, holds you upright on the bike as you ride the bike. And then you learn by feel how to hold the bike upright yourself. And then you're like, boom, I got it. I understand how this is supposed to feel, how I'm balanced on the bike. And then either, your dad lets go of the bike, or you take off the training wheels, or whatever. Okay? Think of this as more of learning in that way. You're learning by feel how your gun is supposed to feel in your hands, how pulling the trigger straight feels, how pulling the trigger sideways or pushing into the gun as you're anticipating the recoil feels. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does, and definitely grip also.
Yes. So you're just learning how the whole thing feels as you're doing it, and then there's some guidelines there to make sure you're doing it properly. So are you shooting quickly? And it's been written down a few different ways as far as if you have skills and drills reloaded. It's written one way in there. Now I'd say I'm instructing it differently in classes where it's just far easier for me to say, all right, let's stand 5-7 yards away from the target and shoot pairs as fast as you can pull the trigger. However fast that is, as fast as you can pull the trigger, and then make sure you're holding the A zone. Like that's a good place to start as far as the performance needs to be there, and you'll learn how it's supposed to feel. Yeah,
it was going to be my next point or question. I don't think I really got the drill until I shot it in your class, because I read it from the book. But so I saw the recommended split times, and those didn't really force me to make the marksmanship errors at the closer distances. And then so I was shooting like the 20s or whatever, like, okay, this is no big deal. And then you're like, okay, shoot this as fast as you can. And then all of a sudden, I started to have problems that I didn't notice when I was shooting some of the split speeds that were listed, because that was comfortable for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. No, it makes sense to me.
So what advice would you give then regarding the split times? Because people look at the book like, okay, this is the time listed. Okay, I do this. Do you think you should keep pushing down on those times at every distance then? Is that safe to say?
The stuff in the book is if you can do that, you're going to be in a pretty good place as far as a competitive sense, with the caveat of a lot of times when you're put under pressure, whatever that means. The first stage of a big match, or you're watching GM Joel smash you on a stage, you're trying to keep up. So you decide that you're going to go extra fast, or you're going to try hard on that stage. Then you will shoot faster, or you will shoot differently, and you might induce some problems. So what I would say is making those the par times, or being able to shoot at the level that's stipulated in there. I think, like, as the distance gets far enough away, if you're shooting 30 splits, that's going to end up being fine from a competitive sense. But you could always do better, and you should understand that as you get pressed in a match, you might do things you don't really intend to in terms of how fast you're going, or if you're feeling a lot of pressure, you might be mashing the trigger, pushing on the gun. So if you can recreate those situations in practice, that's great.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
Thing I've noticed also is I feel like sometimes the pause between the pairs, I feel like that's important.
It is.
And as I've seen videos of some people doing that, it's like the pause gets reduced kind of, so it's like ba 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 ba, and as the drill goes on, it kind of turns into more of a bill drill. If that makes sense.
You don't want that.
I feel like that pause is important.
It is
correct?
I agree, because what I see is in real situations. So either it's a training stage where I can put pressure on somebody, or it's a match where the environment puts pressure on them without me having to do anything. You see when people swing their gun over onto a target and they have a desire to go fast, a lot of times it'll induce, they push down on the gun, or there's some other marksmanship error, or there's trigger freeze, something like that. As you get relaxed shooting this drill, you start doing bill drills where you're just like burning rounds into a target. That's not as helpful, because you're not going to simulate the
like the initial shot of the pair, kind of?
Yes. Yeah, you're not going to simulate that.
Okay.
For whatever reason.
Okay. And then you and Kim talked about 7 to 10 yards being the distance you learn the most at.
That's pretty tight.
You're shooting at the 3-inch circle. Why that distance? Was it just because it's easier to see it, like, on paper, to see your hits? Or is there a reason you chose that?
Well, it was Kim who really chose it. I mean, for me being me, I started doing the drill and teaching it the way that, I don't know, like Gaston and I first understood it a certain way, where we're sitting and doing math, like doing calculus of how many points you can drop at certain distances and what your split time should look like, and comparing it with hit factors, just doing all this nonsense. So what was really, it was important in our thinking as we were developing this, what the A zone, the C zone, the D zone, like the actual scoring zones on the targets as you understand them and as you use them in a match, right? That's kind of the frame we looked at it in.
Okay.
But from a skill development frame, where I want to get really good, really fast, and I'll apply my skills to the match part of it, or to the scoring system later. I just want to get good for now. From that frame, it's 7-10 yards, as fast as you can pull the trigger, if you can shoot like a 3-inch group out of the center of the target, irrespective of A zone or not. That doesn't matter anymore. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, you just want your bullets to land right next to each other.
Yeah, so from doing the drill and learning the skills, that's a really good place to be, because like I've been shooting indoors a lot lately. So if I put my target up on my lane and I send it down, to the 30 feet to 10 yards, I can stand there and blast at that target. I will see visually, hey, that bullet's not where I wanted it to go. I would have felt that, and I track that with the sights. And I can see everything that's happening with the target, and I can shoot a lot of bullets through that target, through that 3-inch hole, before I feel the need to reel the target back in and apply any pasters to it. So it's very efficient that way. If it's at 25 yards, now it's difficult to see down there, and it takes a lot of time to reel it in and paste it and send it back out.
Or even to call which one, like, I thought that one was a little funny, but maybe it was there, maybe it wasn't. Well, I've shot the target 50 times, so who knows?
Exactly. So that's what Wansik's talking about. And it was when he came here with me when we were launching the training group, and he was here for a couple weeks working with me and like filming and doing stuff. Like every morning we'd have individual training, which was you go on your bay, I go on my bay, and we train that day, and then we start actually doing work. Because if we didn't do that, we weren't going to get time to train.
Gotcha.
Because that's how it works.
Yeah. Are there any other common issues you see for, like, even people posting videos or something where they kind of miss like how they should be doing the drill or do it incorrectly?
Yeah, so the most common errors with this drill are administrative, which is understanding how to run the drill and doing it where you're actually shooting in pairs, you know, like actually doing the drill is the problem. Once people do it properly, they usually feel and experience the things that they're supposed to. So in classes, for like you've been in a class with me, you understand. A normal drill, I demonstrate once in a class. Like I shoot it live one time, maybe talk about it, do it dry a few times, all that shit. This drill, I usually demo run it 5 or 6 times, just so people can see it happening, because it cuts down on the administrative errors people are making, where it's just they understand more what it's supposed to look like. If that gives you any idea. Like, this one is complicated, and widespread misunderstanding of what it is people are supposed to be doing doesn't surprise me in the slightest, because it's strange and it's different to other things that we do.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's easy to shoot a lot of ammo, so I just think it's important that it's being set up correctly and executed correctly. Otherwise, you're kind of just creating expensive noise if you're doing like bill drills or like missing the point of the drill. So.
Yes, of course. But I mean, it's just people need to think in terms of experience. You know, it's experiential. It's where you can learn things. Yeah.
Yeah, especially with my grip. I learned a lot about that.
Hey, Tim, that the mutual friend that I sent that clip to was very confused by it.
What's the confusing part?
Yeah, it is confusing.
Tim, by the way, that Nest camera you have at the Pro Shop, that is some pretty cool tech, huh?
It's a good camera.
Dude, how long till you put one of those in your daughter's room or something?
She's too old for that. I don't think that's appropriate.
Did you see that? Do you watch Black Mirror, Tim?
I've seen like 1 or 2 episodes.
There's an episode where basically your kid's eyes have a Nest camera.
Oof, no. I watched one with a robot dog.
That's freaky, right?
The guard dog thing, and then the one where like there's social credits, you know, like people can upvote you and
Bryce
downvote
Dallas
you.
Howard got like super fat for it.
I've seen those 2. That's all I've seen.
You're missing out, Tim. It's a great show.
Okay, I may get back into it.
No, you won't. All right. Very excellent. So, Joel, that covered the basis for you?
Yeah, appreciate it. That makes sense.
All right, Tim. So you got 2 choices. You could talk about what you did this week in shooting, which will amount to assembling Boss holsters and shipping them out to people.
That's probably about right.
Or I think people would like to hear about the Holiday Hose Fest.
Well, it's not that interesting. That's just like basically a club level match that we put on every year. That Mr. Ryan from the Pro Shop, he puts it on. Is what it sounds like. It's a hose fest.
I mean, by your standards?
Nah, it's not hosey enough. It's pretty hosey though. Okay, actually, I have something to talk to you guys about. So one of the stages was set up where the targets were literally maybe about a yard outside of the shooting box. And so what kind of problem do you think we had with that?
Oh, you had pasters blowing off like fucking crazy.
Yeah.
It's too close.
So I have a question about that. Yeah, we did. We literally had them like blowing off in wads. How are you supposed to score that?
2 alpha, move along, right?
No, like the way you score it is if you can't score it, it's a reshoot, which is
like
nightmare.
How are you going to score it when it blows off like alphas and charlies?
Do you want to know like what actually happens in a match?
Yeah,
what actually happens in a match is the guy gets 2 alphas unless somebody as long as nobody makes an issue of it. If you blowing the pasters off the target, the guy's going to get alphas, irrespective of where his hits were.
So but even at like nationals, that's how they're going to do it.
At nationals, they would not let the targets that close. They just would not. At nationals, no, they wouldn't. Like at nationals, there'd be some RO that's going by the letter of the rule book. That would be like forcing a bunch of reshoots on their stage, and then the whichever BOC is running the thing, I don't know, would go over there and tell them
we
not
had
to do
problems
that.
with it.
I'm
Basically,
sure
it
drives
was
people
just
crazy.
set up in a way that was it got staked. All the fault line was staked. Everything was staked down before it got eyeballed, and then it was like a giant pain to move everything at that point. So we're like, let's give it a shot, and then pacers were flying.
So what essentially, I'm guessing that there was a big problem between people following the letter of the rule book and people who were practical.
Correct.
Because there's essentially no way practically to score those targets.
No, you toss it. You just toss. Either you give the people alphas or you toss it, right?
Or you toss the stage. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, interesting. So that was about the most interesting about it. I mean, we had fun. It was a good time. I don't think there was any no shoots, no hard cover. It was just a lot of blasting really fast, and everybody seemed to enjoy it. We had a good turnout. But Yeah, that situation with the targets was kind of interesting because I've never encountered that where it's been that problematic.
It's pretty common at indoor ranges.
Okay. Yeah, I don't ever shoot indoors, so interesting.
And it's like IDP. I've actually seen people at IDPA matches cut a hole out. They cut the down zero out of the target. So that just doesn't exist anymore. So as long as there's no bullets striking the down one, it's all good.
So if I just shoot next to the target, I get the 0?
Yes, Teb, you've deciphered the Da Vinci code for that target. Yes.
Just shoot next to it. I can't prove I didn't hit it. Can't prove I didn't put it through there.
The "you can't prove I didn't" is not a very powerful argument you'll find at IDPA matches. It works a lot better at USPSA matches.
I know, I don't shoot IDPA. Interesting. That's all I got. Sorry. Kind of boring this week. Assembled a lot of boss holsters and
I like
stuff
how
like that.
Ryan from the Pro Shop goes and runs a lovely match that's right up your alley, the Hose Fest. And your opener about it is, well, it's not that interesting. It's like, damn.
Well, no, it's fun, but it's it's just a club match. It's kind
Every
of a
year
good
you're
theme
talking
club
about
match.
the Hose Fest. I think I might go next year just to
You should.
just to ruffle some feathers up.
It is a good time. It's entertaining.
The problem is I'm too busy on other stuff, man, trying to market stuff for you, trying to get you rich.
I like it. I don't think that's the case. I think you're too busy cleaning brass and going to the indoor range.
Speaking of,
Your brass cleaning setup is pretty boss.
speaking of, what I'd like to talk about is today, of all days, we're recording this at 2:08 p.m. on a Wednesday, for anybody curious. Today's brass day for me. So since I got a really baller brass cleaning setup and I actually possess enough brass that I can more or less shoot all year with just cleaning my brass once, between the amount of factory ammunition that I might get handed or buy or whatever mechanism I choose, or I have been buying cleaned brass and shooting it a little bit depending on availability and what I need. Anyway, one day a year is brass day, where I take my brass and I clean it. And today, I don't know how much it is. To be honest, it's a lot. Could be 50,000 pieces. Could be less, could be more. Not really sure. But I cleaned my brass once, and that is today.
Aren't you regretting having 2 calibers now that you have 9 and 40 to separate, though?
No, because you just don't put them in the cleaner at the same time. It's really not that hard. So my setup is I have a tumbler, which I guess was custom made for me, which is a wet tumbler, obviously, with 2 drums on it. I don't know the volume that they contain, but it's quite a lot. And then I fill it up with with water and brass, and then some Lemmy Shine and some dish soap, and I tumble them. I tried using media, the pins, and that lasted about 45 seconds, that idea. And then I'm like, I'm not sure I really need to use these. So I don't use any pins or anything. And I just clean the exterior of the cases with them rubbing against each other. And it took, it took the morning to clean all the brass, and it'll be a longer process to dry it. It'll take all day to dry it because I load the brass into big dehumidifiers to dry it. And then at the end of the day, all of this stuff will go back into storage, and I will not need to worry about cleaning brass again until next year. Yeah. It's mostly because I just pick up, my rule is if it's convenient, I pick up 9 brass every time I shoot it. And that rule will apply to 40 now as well. So it's like, if it's convenient, I will pick it up every time. And then I buy a little bit to supplement to make sure I don't run out, and then I'll just clean it once a year, and I'll be good to go on brass. So that's a good way to go. As far as wet tumbling, I'm very, very happy with it. It's way easier than dealing with media. And working in the volume I work with, it's, I'm happy that tumbling is not a part of my daily life when it comes to reloading. Let me put it that way. It's not fun.
Makes sense.
Anything to add to that, Tim? You think wet tumbling is stupid, or you like it, or no, Tim? Is Tim still there?
I think you froze.
Oh, that's really sad.
There was kind of like a tapping noise and it stopped. So, there he is.
There he is.
Sorry, somebody's trying to call me right now. No, I like the idea of wet tumbling. I don't want to deal with the drying. in that. That's the big reason I've never done it.
Dude, with the Texas sun, you would just do brass day during the middle of the summer.
This trick, stick it in the parking lot, let it dry.
No, I'm serious, dude. I'm
Yeah.
not kidding. You put it out there and ride like that. That'd smoke it out. It's way easier. I'm kind of a putz doing it during the winter because
Yeah,
it'd
but I
be
get
way
it.
easier.
I mean, it's when you have time. The problem is you're too busy the rest of the year.
Yeah, I just tumble it. I'll start it in the morning, go to work, get home that night, like, oh, it's done. Dump it in the Dylan separator thing, and that's that.
I
big
do.
deal.
I do have one advantage, I would say, for my reloading process over everyone else I know, and that is I only reload practice ammunition. So QC is really not an issue. I don't like it. It just solves a lot of problems just to buy the little bit of match ammo I need and shoot that, and like just loading practice ammo makes life a lot easier. Because if it's a little fucked up or whatever, it's not really the end of the world for me. I just shoot it anyway.
Because you don't case gauge your practice ammo either, right? You just roll with
Jesus
it.
Christ, dude. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. See, and I case gauge everything, and then there's no difference between match and practice ammo.
Joel, you are,
I know.
I don't know, you're a special man.
Well, then if I'm having problems with something, I want to know about it. So
No, I'm actually kind of the same way now. Now that I got so many zeros, like there's no difference between my match load and my practice load.
yeah.
So many 0 bullets, you mean?
Yes, correct. I mean, I load the same powder, the same primers, the same bullets. I tend to QC the match ammo a little more. I pay more attention, but I mean, with the auto drive, I don't have any issues.
Yeah, it doesn't take that long. It'd take me longer if I got some case stuck and I was like beating the beaver tail of my gun on something like post at the range trying to get it unlocked or something. That would be more headache. So,
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Let's move on to some questions because I know you guys love that stuff.
of course.
All right, I've queued up the questions here. All right. Hey, Ben, I've been listening to the podcast religiously. You and your guys are the only ones I really trust out there for good info on the electro web. That's right, you should trust me. Because if I want your money, I'll be straight up about it. Well, it's true.
Speaking of being trustworthy, didn't you tell some guy earlier today use a rock chucker to reload with? So
I think I was clearly joking. Like, I posted a picture of me drying out like a gajillion pieces of brass. Guys like, what kind of reloading press you got? I was like, oh man,
You have to get that all the time, though.
I do. And then I was like,
Yeah.
well, I use a rock chucker.
yes, it was clearly
That
a
is
joke.
the best single stage. Anyway, what are your thoughts on thumb rest? I'm shooting single stack and knocking on the back door of B class. Knocking on the back door, huh? I don't know what that means. I'm looking at purchasing a CZ Tactical Sport Orange and 40 to shoot some limited matches. The gun comes with a thumb rest. I'd love to hear you guys sound off on it. Thanks, champ. Ah, that's nice. I don't know. I'll let you guys go first. I should say, if you guys don't know, Tim Myers, Pro Shop Tim, is actually a GM in production. So
Tim is very good.
Tim is.
Hey, listen, I'm not one to comment on this. I've literally never shot a gun with a thumb rest.
Tim
so I'm
is
going to be
at-
useless on this.
Tim, you're not going to be useless because your first impression is probably really valuable. Tim is the pinnacle of the casual hobbyist in this sport. Right? That's about your
Yeah.
level.
Yeah, for sure.
The people who don't care that much but shoot a little bit. Like, there you go. All right, Tim, you never shot one with a thumb rest. If you get that CZ Tactical Sport Orange, which, do you have some now? Who was I looking at? Oh, Goot wants some. That's what I was watching on Instagram the other day.
I thought that's like a Shadow 2 orange or something.
No, Tac Sport Orange.
Text-
It's basically like my blue gun, except you'd like the look of it a lot better.
I hate that blue gun.
God damn. All right, Tim. Anyway, thumb rest. What do you think?
Well, my vibe is if I care about shooting any other division that I can't run a thumb rest in, I'm not going to run the thumb rest. So, like, if I think I'm going to bounce back and forth between single stack and limited, I'm not going to run a thumb rest.
Are you interested in a thumb rest if you exclusively shot a division that allowed one?
No.
No. Why not?
I don't really see the point of it. Maybe open, but I don't really see the point of it.
Okay.
And again, I'm speaking from an experience.
No,
I've
of course.
never shot it.
The thing I messed around with one a little bit. The thing I saw was people put pressure
Yeah.
into that thumb rest. They push forward, and where you want to have both your hands really establishing a grip and focusing on your grip, then your support hand, you're kind of pushing it away from your strong hand because you're pushing on that gas pedal.
Yeah.
So that was the takeaway that I saw.
I think a properly adjusted thumb rest is fine. I wouldn't say that it really bothers me, but it makes the gun handling a little more complicated. Where, when you're re-gripping the gun after you reload, or you're getting a grip on the gun when you draw it, it makes that a little bit more cumbersome, if you know what I mean. Hey, because you have to get your thumb around the thumb rest.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't shot one hella hard that has a thumb rest. I have obviously shotguns with thumb rests. Like, I do not have a thumb rest on my limited gun at all. Like, I have no interest in putting one on there. Just for that, kind of like what Tim's talking about. Well, I want to shoot other stuff where I'm not allowed to have a thumb rest for one. And then for two, I don't really think it adds a lot of value, to be honest. If I thought it added value, I would put one on there. But I just don't really like it. I can see why somebody would. I can see why you would like it. I just don't. That's my read on that.
Yeah, I think it might be comfortable, but I would just be very conscious of not putting pressure into it, not pushing forward.
Yeah. Okay, let's do one more question. Seeing as you guys are so insightful with the thing. Oh, this is an interesting question for you, Tim. You're gonna love it. My work.
When you get
what's that, Tim?
when you get the blue guns.
When you get the blue guns. Yeah. When are you? How many people have asked you that?
None recently, actually, but I mean, I get emails all the time.
Yeah. You don't want to sell the blue guns?
I would if I could get them. I'll sell them.
You'd be like, I hate this gun.
I'll sell
I'm
the
gonna
pink guns.
it to
I
you
don't
if you
care.
want it.
Sure, yeah, I don't care.
If I got a pink gun and started shooting that, would that make you happy, Tim?
You can shoot whatever you want, Ben. Whatever makes you happy.
I shoot
don't
what
worry
makes
about
you
it.
happy, Tim. All right, my work
Obviously.
keeps me outside the U.S. for 8 months a year, and it makes sense from a tax perspective to stay overseas for 3 out of the other 4 months. I mean, is this to avoid, I don't know how the tax works. I think the U.S. still wants their piece. Anyway, prior to taking this job, I was very active in USPSA, and I would like to find a way to keep shooting. My question is, if you had to live in another country with the express intention of shooting IPSC, what country would you choose, and could you shed any light on how one would go about finding a practice range, matches, importing competition gear and guns, and procuring ammo? Oh my God. So guys, which country would you go to shoot?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I really like that range you were at in Russia. So I would want to do a little touring and go check that place out and check some other places out. Like, okay, where's the best shooting situation?
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Off the top of my head, I think
Wherever Ted is.
Wherever Ted is, Sweden. Yeah, Sweden's pretty good. So I was going to say Scandinavia is a good country to shoot in. I think Argentina, if you're going to South America, Argentina's all right to shoot in. And I like some of the matches I've been to in Russia. I think there's a pretty good shooting community in Australia. I mean, that's a little more, I don't know if you're looking at cost. Like, obviously you wouldn't go to Australia if you were price sensitive. You wouldn't go to live in Sweden or whatever for a few months. If you were price sensitive, you'd go more like, South America or Asia, something like that. If you're looking at shooting, I would, for a lot of reasons, I would probably go to, I don't know, I'm going to Australia for a month in 2019. I would be happy with an arrangement like that. I would be happy in Russia. I'm going to Argentina for a few weeks. I'd be happy there. I mean, I live this life. I understand. But here's the thing. How would I find a practice range or matches? I mean, you are going to need to talk to, if it's a smaller country, the regional director is probably going to be helpful, unless they're a dick. Some of them are dicks, but most of them are super cool. I've never had a regional director be a dick to me. Never. Where it's like, hey, I'm passing through your country. I'm passing through your region. Can you help me get a permit for this gun? Yes. The answer is always yes. So the regional directors, I mean, the only regional director that you probably will not get a lot of response out of, that is the one in the U.S. for a few reasons. I mean, he doesn't really care too much about IPSC, and he's got a huge region to run with. Well, how many members do we have now, Joel? Active? Do you know?
I don't.
Maybe 30,000?
I was gonna say 25.
25, oh yeah, we have a lot of members. I mean, by comparison, if you're going to like Norway, the RD there might have, I don't know, 500 members, 700 members. So they just have a lot less to do, and they'll be more inclined to help you get a permit or help you, do whatever. So that would be the first point of contact if I didn't know anybody. And yes, I've sent this email where I emailed the RD for some country and like, hey, this is what I want to do. Can you like point me in the right direction? And they've always been cool. As far as importing competition gear and guns, I would think that is not going to happen. I would, maybe it will, maybe, but importing it for a long time and leaving it there, and then you go do your job for 8 months and come back and, for 3 or 4 months to shoot your own gear, I just would be surprised if it's going to be that slick that you get it set up year one. I would not think that's going to happen. I would plan on buying my stuff locally, or more likely, I have some mechanism to pay for somebody else to buy the stuff, and then it stays under their license, and then I get some sort of temporary license where I'm allowed to use it. Okay, so the biggest problem is going to be the law here in these countries. It would just be, it's going to be easier that you get some sort of a temporary license and somebody holds your stuff for you that you also pay for locally. Does that make sense, guys?
Yep.
That would be like, based on what I know traveling around, that would probably be the most likely scenario. But it depends on the country. Like these countries can have really, really big variations in law. And if you're, and also the process is a lot different for non-citizens than citizens. For example, we have a super easy time going to France for matches as a non-citizen. If I'm a French citizen, it's going to be a lot harder for me to get my guns into that country. And then there's a whole licensing process and some other shit that you have to do, where the process changes completely. So yes, without knowing specifically where you want to go in the world, it's really difficult to give you specific advice. And obviously I'm not an expert in all these countries, but I think I've been to 25 or 30 countries with my guns.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It sucks, dude. It's a lot of paperwork and a lot of nonsense. But at the end, I have brought my gun around to some places, and the big thing is the people there know the laws, and then you just like, hey, this is what I want to do. And I've never had any problems. The only country that scares me is the U.S.
Really?
Yeah, like once almost getting arrested in New York, like
yeah,
it's kind of like,
that
yeah,
story.
I could totally see that. Whereas like for me, I've technically violated the law in, I'm sure, a couple of countries, but I just show up there at customs like, yeah, this is what I have and this is what I want to do, and then they help me and sort out the licensing and make sure the I's are dotted and T's are crossed and all that. Then they help me on my way. And I roll up to a country by myself. I'm not with a big entourage of U.S. people like for a world shoot. I can roll up there by myself and be like, yeah, this is what I want to do, and they've always been helpful. Always. They're not really there to fuck me up. They're there to be helpful, which is cool. I don't feel that way in the U.S. where I'm like, oh, I think these guys are looking to jam me up.
That's disappointing.
That's reality, unfortunately. I mean, I've even had the Canadian, like a firearms office in Canada, expedite getting me my paperwork on time.
Wow.
They'll just like, yeah, we'll just process this right away, just to help you there, booty. I'm like, oh, thanks. Or whatever. Not to be racist, but just saying. Tim, you say 31,000 active members?
Well, that's what USPSA has on the site.
Yeah, I could totally see that. I thought it would have crossed 30,000 because it keeps, it keeps going up. It sells itself. USPSA is pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's my answer to your question, man. Which is not, maybe not the most helpful, but there you go.
So I got a question for you, Ben.
Yeah.
Is the gun situation easier for Ted, like to actually get a hold of them and go practice and get a hold of ammo? I mean, is it like less complicated than, let's say, in Australia or France or something like that?
In Sweden, no, I don't think so. I think it's more complicated. Well, maybe about the same. Most of these countries have a licensing process that might have some of them have some bullshit in there where it's like they graduate the calibers that you're allowed to shoot over some period of time, which is that really sucks. The countries that have that, it's a fairly common thing. In most places, it's you apply for the license, you kind of agree to some set of rules. A lot of countries have a thing where you get inspected on some basis. I mean, the mandate in some countries I've heard of is every 15 years, like they could come inspect you as a license holder. I've heard of some countries where every year the authorities will come and like look at your safe and be like, yeah, you're storing it properly. But basically, there's a licensing thing, and you get a license, and then a lot of times there's another license you have to get to purchase a new gun. But then once you do all that stuff, it's basically you're going to function the same as you would here, where it's, yeah, you just go buy ammo and you load it and then you go shoot. And it's not like an issue with your daily life. You just have to go get the license.
Interesting. Okay.
It's actually difficult for me to have conversations with people from other countries sometimes when they're like, yeah, so we're going to get you this permit for your guns. Just send me your license, your gun license. And it's like, oh, well, that's not a thing here. I can send you a concealed carry license, but I can't send you a gun license because I don't have one of those.
Gotcha.
Anyway,
I remember seeing an interview with Eric where he was saying he could only have like so many magazines assembled at a time or something. If they're disassembled, it was okay, and like they limited the amount of live ammo he could have loaded, but he could have more projectiles. So
yeah, so a lot of countries have those sort of restrictions that are arbitrary. Like in Argentina, Gaston and I have to be careful when we're shooting a lot about how much ammunition we have loaded at any time, because there's restriction on that. And should he be inspected when when I'm there, that would be a problem. So then it has to go to some place where it's legal to store it or whatever, but it can't be like at his place. We can't have more than X number of loaded rounds.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, that is a thing to be careful about. But then what the interesting thing is, as a visitor to those countries, you're not really subject to a lot of restriction or even inspection. I mean, maybe by law you are or whatever, but for our guys that went to France for the World Shoot, I mean, nobody's asking me how many magazines I have assembled. Nobody cares. But if you live there, it's different. Somebody might come looking, so it could become an issue.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway, another bang up podcast, guys. Tim, thank you for coming on. I know Joel really wanted you.
Yeah, I like Tim.
Thanks.
He talks so much.
He's not very spicy. Tim talks crazy as long as he's not being recorded, which is maybe smart.
I like the spicy talk to you.
Yeah, you do love the spicy talk. Listeners, if you have a question you'd like the answer to, go to benstegger.com. Send me your question. Select podcast question on the email form, and then it will go into the podcast question box. So yay. So good.